Well, that first inning couldn't have gone any worse. We are talking about the disaster that was tonight's game and how the Padres winning might actually be a good thing for the rest of this series. We have more. I know we're crazy. It sounds crazy. We'll explain in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Well, welcome in to another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast, brought to you by our friends at Circle K. Damon there is in Studio K at PHNX HQ. I am here in my home, and I might never leave after watching the Diamondbacks lose tonight's game. I'm very sad, and I'm going to just basically bombard myself in this building. Diamondbacks lose tonight by a score of 5-3 to the San Diego Padres. There's no sugarcoating this one. It was a very important game that the Diamondbacks needed to win, and they didn't. And they did not play well to start the game, especially that first inning. Of course, my name is Derek Montia, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me is the people's champion, the one and only Damon Farrell. And of course, we also have our guy Kev on the ones and twos. Jesse Friedman, your thunderstick, not mine, will be joining us from Chase Field here shortly. Damon, what were your immediate thoughts on this game? I mean, considering the way it started out, this is total loser talk, but I thought the Diamondbacks at least did a good job after that first inning went the way it did of fighting back and making this a game. But unfortunately, it's like the damage was too significant already after that first inning.
Yeah, I mean, you come out the gates that slow. Like, it's unfortunately you weren't well prepared for the game, you know? That's the sad reality of how it is. And it's a long line of losing. I feel like these big games down the stretch here where it's like, now they're going to show up. Now they're going to show up. And then they continually are laying eggs recently. So it's not a good spot to be in as a Diamondbacks fan.
The lights were too bright for them tonight, that's for sure. Of course, this show is also presented by our friends at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. That first inning, let's just get into it because obviously things went horribly for the Arizona Diamondbacks that lead them now to a record of 88-72 with just 2 games left in their season. The leadoff double in the right center field gap by Luis Rise, who just continued to be a problem for the Diamondbacks all night long, getting extra base hits. The man has like a 317 batting average, but a sub 800 OPS. Doesn't make any sense to me, but he gets on base a lot. That play looked potentially playable there by Corbin or Pavin, and neither guy was able to get there.
I think, if Alec and Corbin is the combo out there, potentially. But there was a few balls like that tonight, weren't there? Like, I think Pavin Smith really hurt this team defensively tonight. Ketel obviously hurt this team defensively tonight on a pretty loud level after he's had a fairly solid defensive season overall. You know what I mean? So it's really just inopportune timing. I feel like the Diamondbacks, this whole stretch has been just the worst possible timing on the season. And the defense tonight, you saw Merrill looked very frustrated coming off the mound because he felt like he should have been out of that inning. Yoshi, 170 batting average. Like, that's obviously that gets caught most of the time. So it's unfortunate.
Spooky Boy says, I was told Arise only hit singles. Not in this game, apparently.
After Dodgers, I was going to bring this up. After Dodgers fans were roasting him for going 0 in the 3-game series against the Dodgers a couple of days ago, all of a sudden, then he comes out tonight. He was the joke of baseball Twitter. And then he comes out and he just owns us in this game. Him and Jackson Merrill. And Jackson Merrill he makes me so sick, Derek.
He makes me sick to my stomach.
I can't stand that guy. Those balls he was running down out there, that play off the wall on the Grichuk one, like he made that a close play at second base. Grichuk drilled it off the wall. Like, I mean, it's just
he played it perfectly. He played it like he plays at Chase Field. It was amazing.
If we had Jackson Merrill playing center field, we win this game tonight, from a defensive standpoint. So it sucks. And it sucks that they have a rookie who's basically kind of their version of Corbin Carroll, all things considered.
Yeah. Well, and he has a good chance to win the Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah, he does.
Did last year. He got their second run of the game with an RBI single. There was just that run shouldn't have even been there because, like you said, Ketel Marte had not one but two potential inning double plays that Ketel just absolutely blew. You had the Manny Machado hit that looked like a potential inning double play, but it went right through Ketel's glove. Then you have the Xander Bogaerts grounder that looked like another potential ending double play, but Ketel too slow to get there. Airmails it to first base, 3-0 Padres at that point. And I mean, again, I think it's frustrating considering how well the team played the rest of the game. There were still some other mistakes made. Pavin's defense was not great out there. And we're going to talk about maybe why it was a huge mistake to not start Jake McCarthy here in a little bit, but Merrill Kelly settled in after that. I mean, felt like I said, the damage was already too significant after a 4-run first inning. You knew the Padres weren't going to stay off the board completely. And honestly, the Diamondbacks did a good job of at least holding them just to one more run after that point. And that's what's frustrating about this game. There's a lot of things that are frustrating, and I know fans are very angry about a lot of things, and rightfully so. But I think the thing that makes it worse is that, man, if you limit the damage, if Ketel gets out of that inning with either one of those double plays successfully being pulled off, this is a completely different game. And I mean, obviously team morale is probably pretty low after that, right? You can't feel great about giving up 4 runs in the first inning to any team, let alone the San Diego Padres, right? But Kelly only gives up the RBI triple to Luis Ariz later that, and that was the only other run allowed in this game. He gave him 5 2/3 innings pitched, 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, 8K. RA, you're not wrong. RA says, "How do you not start Jake on his t-shirt day?" I'm going to give you some numbers that are going to make it even worse for you. In his last 9 games against the San Diego Padres, Jake McCarthy is hitting .400 with 2 doubles, a home run, 5 RBI, 5 walks, and a stolen base. Now, maybe the matchup wasn't great with you, Darvish, but I don't care about matchups at this point of the season. I care about you putting the best players out there to make something happen. And again, pitching matchups are what they are, but who knows how different this game is potentially if you have Jake out there instead of Pavin Smith. I mean, Pavin Smith obviously he's had his big hits. I'm not taking anything away from Pavin at the dish. I'm just saying that Pavin has not been great in the outfield, and that's been a known thing about Pavin.
Yeah, and it sucks because Pavin went 0 for 4 tonight, and obviously hindsight is 2020. But if he's gonna give you an 0 for 4 game and play outfield, I mean, he's killing you. Like that it destroyed the team tonight. So I mean, because Jake could do no worse than 0 for 4. It would be impossible. So I mean, at least from a defensive standpoint, you might have Corbin running down those balls out in the right center gap. With Jake out in center field. I mean, it sucks, man. And it's just, I don't want to be that guy because I'm not, I love Torey.
Put the mask on and be that guy.
I think Torey, I think it's fair to say Torey's had a bad year. He's pressed a lot of the wrong buttons, I think, this year. The same way that in the playoffs last year, he pressed all the right buttons. Every move he made was gold. He was King Midas out there. Yeah. I don't think he's had an especially strong year. I think there's been some times where maybe we sacrificed winning a game here and there for the long term, but the long term is going to be unimportant if they can't even make the playoffs. So
look, I mean, honestly,
I just think it's been a little bit of a rough year on that end.
I think it's easy to say that, though. I think it's easy to say that with all of the injuries and everything that they've done, and to forget and put out of your mind everything that this team did in July and August, I think is criminal in regards to Torey, right? Like there was a significant period of time where this team was depleted as far as personnel, and they had to just figure out a way to field a competent team, and they did so to the point where they won a lot, right? So there's things though that I don't put on Torey. Paul Sewald's poor performances I don't put on Torey. Tonight, maybe you start Jake McCarthy.
Him, though. You got to put that a little bit on
how
Torey.
Long?
He could have pulled the plug
especially after going for 10 straight saves. Like, I mean, you can't really say that he's stuck with him. Like,
oh, absolutely. We were all begging for him to be pulled out of the closer role. Torey stuck with them, I think, a little bit too long, and one game could be the reason this team doesn't make playoffs. I think absolutely
you're going to go back and pick those games apart if they don't make the playoffs quite a bit. You're going to go back and look at that game where they just lost an 8-run lead to the Brewers. And that game should be the game that a lot of people dwell on should the Diamondbacks not make the playoffs. But tonight,
not about a lot of games right now.
I don't even care about Pavin's poor performance because you weren't playing someone else other than Ketel Marte out there. So again, let's blame the guy that is the all-star and that was the potential MVP for botching 2 huge double plays there in the first inning that could have gotten out of this without nearly the amount of damage that was done. I mean, like, again, talking about Torey's managing, like, I don't know. Like, if there was somebody I would trust defensively, it would be Ketel, right? Like, that was just a really bad game for Ketel Marte. And again, that's not a guy that you could say he was going to manage out of the lineup. I mean, again, you could question a lot of things. And I was the one that said Jake McCarthy probably should have played in this one because Pavin Smith is not good in the outfield. I don't know. I mean, maybe he was the difference there. Maybe he could have been the difference. I know we saw Jake make some bad plays out in the outfield recently as well. So it's not like, you can't. None of these outfielders are playing as well as some of the best defensive outfielders that we've seen in the league. None of these outfielders are playing like they were playing last season when it was, in fact, one of the best defensive outfields in the league.
I think it's like, I'm not saying that. I don't think anyone's arguing that Torey is at fault for Ketel's mistakes in the first inning. Like that is indefensible from Ketel's standpoint. Of course, Torey's going to start Ketel at second base and play Ketel. Like that's not. I don't think that's an argument anyone's making. I do think that the Pavin thing is criticizable though, and there have been moves here and there throughout the season that really just haven't been. I just don't think it's been his strongest year. I'm not a fire Torey guy. I'm really not.
You're sounding like a fire Torey guy.
No,
you're sounding like Thunderbolt over here.
I think you have to be able to criticize the people that you like and root for as well. Like I respect Torey. I think Torey's a great manager overall, but I just don't think it's really been his year. And I think we've like I mentioned earlier, we've sacrificed a few games here and there for the long term, and it's going to end up probably costing this team a postseason berth, unfortunately. And that bears criticism, not just on Torey, on everybody, but that's specifically what I was talking about at this moment.
There's just a lot of guys that aren't playing well right now, to be honest. I mean,
that's fair.
There's Christian Walker was not, Christian Walker still is great defensively. You could say that a million times over, and it's never not going to be true, but Walker has not contributed offensively like he has. They're not getting that help out there. Corbin turned things around for this team there after that 4-run first inning by hitting that leadoff home run in the bottom of the first. It really did feel like that was a great way to just answer back against Yu Darvish and to get things going. It was his 4th career leadoff home run, which is one shy of Marte's team leading 5. It's also tied for 5th most leadoff home runs in the National League with Mookie Betts. Ketel Marte scores. The D-backs then of course, scored more runs in the first inning, but then really don't do much after that. It's another case of the Diamondbacks scoring early. They got a Gino RBI single late, but like not really much here. And if there's a lot of guys here, there is a lot of guys here that are, I think, to blame for not contributing more. Bullpen did a great job. Bullpen once again held. You got Joe Mantiply for 1/3 of an inning. Thompson goes out there, gives you a clean inning. AJ Puck, of all people, was the only one that really struggled after getting his first 2 outs. He He allows a 2-out double to Cronenworth, and he walks the pinch hitter Solano. He looked really shaky there, and he barely got out of it. It felt like that ball was very close to leaving the field. So the bullpen did their job to keep this team in it. They just couldn't muster up that late comeback, which, again, that's kind of been a problem with this team as far as the early struggles this season, where they would go down by 2 runs and then you don't feel like they can ever make that up, or once it's down by 2 runs. And today was another one of those days where they were down by 4 early and they just couldn't make it up, despite the fact that they did do a good job of holding the Padres, from that point on. But we do got to give King Snake to somebody. I already gave it to nobody the other day, and nobody deserved it in that game. But we're going to give the King Snake to Corbin Carroll. He was 1 for 3 in this one with 2 walks. He had that big home run. And yeah, he's just it unfortunately feels like in a lot of these losses, we find ourselves saying, like, it's not Corbin Carroll that's the problem, right? Yeah. And I say that unfortunately because it just feels like it doesn't feel like he's getting a lot of help. And I mean, their contributions were from everybody on this team at one point. It really does feel like Corbin's the only one at times taking good at bats, getting on base somehow, still getting home runs, still making the dream of 22.5 over, keeping that alive. Got 2 more games to hit that one.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But he's at 22. He's at 22. So wanted to give a shout out to some of these super chats we had real quickly.
Real quick, can I say on Corbin?
Please. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that it's just like you're so right. He's been, Bees in the chat mentions it. It's a perfect storm of bad things happening right now. I'm not like, I think it's, a bad call by Torey to play Pavin over Jake in this game. It's a bullpen decision here or there. It's a Ketel playing his worst defense of the season. It's a culmination of all these things that are happening that are the reason the Diamondbacks can't win these games. But Corbin Carroll has been like the one constant that seems to be kind of peaking at this moment of the season. And he's the guy who is hitting that stretch right when we need him to. It'd be great if we could get Corbin some help. And I mean, potentially there's going to be this guy in attendance tomorrow. That would be a great time to hit over 22.5, Derek. Who knows?
It would be a great, that would be great for you to be able to celebrate that accomplishment in person. I hope that happens for you. Speaking of in person, our guy Michael Rokicki says, just got in my car at Chase. Bad loss, but until there's an E next to their name, keep the faith. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Oh my God.
It's a great
I don't
movie.
think that's how it,
it's not how it works, but it's hilarious from a quote standpoint, but no, it's not. That's not historically accurate, but it was not over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. You're absolutely right, Michael Rokicki. Thank you so much for your
super chat. Man.
Too soon. We got our guy, Adam Gross, a Padres fan. Hello, Adam. Welcome. I know you're probably here just to tap dance on our grave a little bit, but we're not dead yet. Adam says, Padres fan here. Don't worry. We're going to sit everyone next 2 days and get rotation ready for Wildcard series at Petco. Hopefully against you guys. Rather play you than Sale Fried or Mets pitching. Rooting for you the next 2 days. It was kind of a backhanded compliment, but it was as nice as it could be.
It's not even backhanded, Derek. Another Padres fan, I think it was Tatis Jr. put it in the chat, which that's another thing I got to bring up to you. Jesse Jr. is MIA, but
excuse me,
no idea where he is. As if things couldn't be worse. Jesse Jr. is missing in action. I was searching all over the office for him for this game. Can't find him.
I left him in your care. I
think someone might have stolen him. I'm pretty concerned right now, Derek.
I don't like this. We need to find him.
Tatis Jr. said in the chat that the Padres are going to rest their starters next 2 days so that they can play us. That's how he framed it. So that they get to play us.
Yeah, that's a little bit meaner, I think, but still the same message. And that's what they want. But that's my silver lining here. Okay, the way that I was going to say we did have some potential good news, as crazy as it sounds, about the Padres winning, and that is the Padres have won. And all the Padres really needed to do was win one game to secure their spot as the top wild card team. At this point, The Padres have literally nothing to play for. There's nothing that can change their position, no matter if they lose these final 2 games. And yes, I mean, honestly, maybe you do want to play the Diamondbacks. If you're sitting there from a Padres standpoint, that's crazy to me, because this team just, again, I feel like did a good job of playing you, despite the fact that they made all the mistakes you could make in the first inning and still somehow made this, a 2-run game, right? If the offense was just a little bit more locked in, I feel like they might have been able to, put a comeback together here late, right? But credit to the Padres for also keeping the Diamondbacks, to just 3 runs, right? Like, this is not trying to loser talk this. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying that this game didn't make me feel like the Diamondbacks are overmatched by the Padres. With the amount of mistakes they made, a 5-3 loss is still not the worst thing in the world, right? So yeah, but if that's the case, and that could be the case, right? Like, we talked a lot about this whole situation with teams' motivations, and there was someone in our YouTube comments that kind of scoffed at the idea of motivations. It's not necessarily what, like, these teams are. Like Archie said, no one's going out there and trying to actively lose a game or doesn't care to win it. It's just a matter of personnel and who they put out on the field and the way that they plan these games. The Padres have TBD for their starters for the next 2 games for a reason, and that was based on the outcome of tonight's game. The Diamondbacks, I hope so too, right? So the Padres have lost, or the Padres have won. Diamondbacks lost. The Diamondbacks cannot catch the Padres for that top wild card spot. They cannot have a home, playoff series. And right now, as it stands, the Diamondbacks are actually the team on the outside looking in at the playoffs, right? But there's still 2 more games to be played by the Diamondbacks, Mets, and Braves, plus that series on Monday. So anything can truly still happen. With the Padres potentially going out there and putting, backups out there, or playing, their worst pitchers, this could potentially be the best case scenario that's out of the way. And now the Diamondbacks might still be able to pull off winning 2 out of 3 of the series against this Padres team. So that's the silver lining here. That's the silver lining. But Tatis Jr., thank you so much. He said, it's all in good fun. Y'all are still a very scary team, but Mets or Braves scare me just a little more. And understandably so. Those teams have been playing better baseball right now recently than the Diamondbacks have been playing, right? So, yes, I would say from that perspective.
It sucks if you have a division opponent would play you in the playoffs than a non-division opponent. Sure. That feels a little bad in my opinion. Sure. Like, I'm telling you, like, personally, we've been talking about it all season. We didn't want even when we were ahead of the Padres, we were playing just as good, if not better, baseball than them at, in what was it, July? Like,
we were joking about saying, like, we wanted them to drop back to that final spot.
We still didn't want we were specifically saying we didn't want the Padres. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the fact that they would like to see us is, to me, that's not a good spot to be in.
It's disrespectful is what it is. But
that's okay. But I get it.
It's earned disrespect. It's earned disrespect. They're not playing good right now, and it is earned disrespect. So I will.
Well, the Brewers are not resting their starters against the Mets.
And again, I tweeted this out, but we forgot how much Rhys Hoskins hates the Mets. Rhys Hoskins will not take a day off this weekend. He's going to go out there and hit 2 more home runs before this weekend is over.
By all means, please do, all means, sir. But also, like, I mean, I think it's very possible the Padres pull a Brewers or what the White Sox have been doing, even though that didn't work out for them. They said that, didn't Grady Sizemore say they were going to try to knock the Tigers out of the playoffs because they're rivals with them, they're division rivals? Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked if the Padres were like, hey, we don't want to get rusty. We don't, like the whole rest versus rust debate. We're going to keep playing our guys, and we're going to try to knock the Diamondbacks out of the playoffs. I think that's very possible. And if I see Michael King walk out onto the mound, I'm going to be very scared, Derek.
Well, you're going to be angry. And I doubt they're going to throw him. Why would they?
Don't.
But we'll see.
I'm begging.
We all know what's going to happen. Of course, we got a couple of more super chats here. Piece of Yoshi says the bullpen low-key was all bad, though. I can understand Torey sticking with Sewald in regards to the criticism about Torey. Yeah, like, it felt like another thing last year where whoever he was going with at times was suddenly unable to do it, no matter how good they were pitching. That's the frustrating thing, is that these guys sometimes that Torey puts into these high leverage roles are pitching well enough that they earned it. And then yet once they are in that role, they turn into doo-doo. I think I can say doo-doo, right? All right. Mr. Bananas is here. Stephen Banas says, Torey's a great culture builder. Was key when team was bad. His mismanagement is fair criticism. Question if he's the guy to lead a World Series victory. You guys are insane. The team just got to the World Series last year, and now we're like, is he the guy to do it? Whatever.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
He did, not you, yeah, but I'm lumping you in with him because you sound like
you
that.
You guys are insane. That was one person that said that. There's a reason his name is Mr. Bananas. There's a reason.
You're not paying attention to the comments in the chat, obviously, David, because he is not the only one that said that. But anyway, Benjamin Hunley says the problem this year was starting pitching, and Monty should have been the solution. If they missed the postseason, it's because he showed up unprepared.
It's fair.
Well said. Well said. And honestly, the injuries, but like injuries are going to happen.
Injury to Erod.
Injuries have happened to every team. So it's not like you can sit there and say like the Diamondbacks, were different in regards to that. It just hit them early. Starting pitching was a mess early and they figured it out. Now though, this is the time, honestly, for the Diamondbacks to put their best foot forward. Torey mentioned before the game that Zach pitching on Sunday is a possibility should the season be on the line. So we'll see what happens.
I didn't see that.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing to see. Of course, we thank each and every one of you, no matter who you root for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel right now. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now if you're interested in doing that. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss whenever our shows go live. And at least hit that like button. HTL, hold the line, hit the like. We got to hold the line for this weekend. This is it. We got 2 more games, people. We're either we're either making vacation plans on Monday or we're talking Yoffs. Mother effing Yoffs on Monday. So make sure to hit that notification button and sign up, hit that like, do all that. Swear jar. No money is in that. Archie owes money to that though. We need to send him a bill. Of course, if you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe over there. Leave a review. We appreciate that feedback. And of course, we appreciate you subscribing on your favorite podcast app. We will have more on this game and the numbers from this game, despite the fact I don't really want to talk about those on the other side of our break. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. But first, we got to talk about Blue Chew. We got Blue Chew.
I'm excited for how uncomfortable you're about to make this, Derek.
Oh, yeah, baby. You know what Blue Chew is? There's some confusion. Blue Chew, for those of you that might not know, is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as things like Viagra, Cialis, and other things, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. Does it work? Do you think you need it? Do you think you don't need it? Who are you to think you don't need it? Try it for a month for free and see how crazy things can get. You're going to love it. Your partner's going to love it. Everybody's going to love it. You're going to have a great time. You're going to be missing. You could be missing out on the best sex of your life. So, of course, with Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman when they show up because you'll know that your package has arrived. I didn't even have to write that one, Damon, but we've got a special deal right now for all of our listeners. Try Blue Chew for free when you use our promo code AllCity at checkout. All you have to do is pay the $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. Promo code AllCity to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew so much for sponsoring this podcast. All right. Well, of course, once you've loaded up on Blue Chew, you got to go have a great night at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, right? Those two things go hand in hand, right? Visit any 4 of their Valley locations to experience the best that any casino or resort here in the Valley has to offer.
Please Blue Chew responsibly.
Yes. Don't Blue Chew before you go. There's an appropriate Blue Chew period of time.
While you're there,
and you're an adult, you'll figure it out.
Your beautiful hotel room.
That's right.
Not before you get there.
After you've had a great night of eating out there, one of their wonderful steakhouses or one of their wonderful restaurants, of course, lounging by the pool. I always say grab yourself a pina colada. Do it for me because I'm a big fan of those frosty beverages. And then maybe figure out what time is right. You can head to Gila River Resorts and Casinos and let them show you what the next level is all about. We will, of course, be hosting our events there all season long, including Cardinals and Suns watch parties. So don't miss out. Stay tuned for more information on how to join us for that. But you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casino. Visit playathila.com for more details. All right, well, let's take a look at the count from this game presented by Desert Financial Credit Union. I know I don't want to either. But let's hit up the count. Diamondbacks get outscored by the Padres 5-3 in this one. They get out hit 10-6. Oh, those runner in scoring position, that's a problem there. The Padres had a lot of opportunities with runners in scoring position. They went 3 for 14. Diamondbacks went 1 for 7. Extra base hits, San Diego had 5. Diamondbacks had 2. Corbin Carroll's home run, the only dinger in this one. And then the expected batting average, actually higher for the Diamondbacks there, 284 to the Padres 266. And yeah, that always makes me feel sad when that happens.
Yeah, that expected batting average feels like that kind of, it wasn't too big of a differential, but that does feel like how it played out watching the game. Like, for example, Arias gets that double at his last hit of the night down the third baseline, just pokes it off the end of the bat straight over third base, weak as hell, and it's a double for the Padres. Meanwhile, I don't know how hard he hit it. It was Jerry, so it probably was just surprisingly slow and looked fast off the bat. But that ball he hit to Jackson Merrill to lead off the 9th inning, at first I was like, oh, that's a hard hit ball straight to somebody. Those Jackson Merrill running down those balls in deep center field, like in a lot of stadiums, those are home runs. And then of course the Padres get runs out of a couple of Ketel Marte errors that should have gone down as outs. So yeah, I feel like really it's a mixture of playing bad defense and getting unlucky tonight on the offensive side of the baseball, and the Padres playing good defense. It's kind of just a culmination of all those things that
they didn't make mistakes. They didn't make mistakes in this. Yeah, exactly. This was a game where the Diamondbacks absolutely made the mistakes, and they didn't play error free. And honestly, again, I don't want to dwell too much on how close it was, because 5-3 really isn't that close of a game in baseball. But I'll just say, overall, the way that they played the Padres, it just goes to show that those mistakes early on really were the difference maker in this one. You didn't, if this would have been a game where the Padres would have won 10-3 or more, that would be much different. But you look at this, you look at how close this was, and you realize so much of this damage was done early on in that first inning, when the Diamondbacks had ample opportunities to get out of it without nearly that many runs scoring. And then you don't know how the rest of this game goes from that point, right? That's not an alternate reality that we currently live in. We live in this timeline, which might be the darkest timeline based on how the Diamondbacks perform here down the stretch. But man, I'll tell you this, at the very least, we do have the fact that the Padres can game plan now differently, and we hope, right? And honestly, again, I don't even feel that they need that. I don't feel like the Diamondbacks need that in order to win the final 2 games of the series.
They don't have to. I just think it might help.
You're going to rest guys. You're going to use the opportunity to rest guys. The Wildcard series starts on Tuesday, so even if it's not tomorrow, even if Saturday they still put out their normal starting lineup, there's a good chance that Sunday could look vastly different no matter what happens in tomorrow's game.
Yeah. It kind of, even potentially the Padres could even start, their regular batting lineup or close to it, and then maybe just not use their high leverage bullpen guys during, the later innings of the game. I could see that being a distinct possibility. They keep their guys getting ABs so that they're still kind of in the rhythm of being, high intensity baseball, but then maybe save their arms a little bit down the stretch. That wouldn't be the worst of all realities. But the other reality is that the Diamondbacks are a team that plays down to their competition. It feels like they don't. It doesn't feel like they take advantage of those Rockies games. The take advantage of when they play some of the worst teams on their schedule, and then oftentimes you're right, they kind of get up for some of the bigger games. Not in this week, that's for sure, but I think we've seen that plenty of times before, and. It's really just it feels like a total wild card. I have no idea what to expect the rest of the way. If I look at the playoff odds right now, and hopefully Jesse doesn't get mad at me because I didn't do it with him on air, and I know how much he loves these, but the D-backs are currently 38.6% to make playoffs, Derek.
That's awful.
The Mets are at 71.3%. So that's where we sit right now.
Yeah, well, I will say this in regards to the Diamondbacks playoff chances, because there's people accusing us of coping apparently in the chat, Damon. And I don't really find this as coping as much as it's just, this is what it is. Like, there is a good point to be made about, like, if the Diamondbacks can't win now and can't get things on track, what's even the point of making the playoffs if you're just going to get bounced in the first round? Or what's the point of us all living and dying on making the playoffs if when they enter the playoffs, they're not going to be competitive with the team that they're playing, no matter who they're playing, right? I think the answer to that is
sometimes, though. Last year they lost their last 4 games. They went to the World Series. I don't think that's typically how it goes, but sometimes that's just the way it is, and just got to give yourself a chance once you get in the dance. But that's
how we felt last year. That 100% last year. We were almost like, this is kind of a waste of time for them to even be in the playoffs with the way that they couldn't win their way in and get those crucial wins down the stretch. It's how things, shake up sometimes. Last year was a bit different because it was a team just kind of playing poorly. I feel like this year is a bit more about, again, the losses of personnel and those guys coming back and then not being, at 100%. Ketel not being at 100%. Christian Walker not being at 100%. And I don't even mean like health-wise. I mean not at 100% as far as what we've seen out of them this season, as far as their, play, as far as their ability, right? Like, so it sucks because of the timing of all of it. But at the very least, we talked about this before, at least they got everybody back. They're not playing their best baseball right now, but at least they got everybody back. I don't know if that's a detriment and removed guys like Kevin Newman and Josh Bell from the lineup and Jake McCarthy from the lineup, but this is where they're at, and they're trying their best to get there. I have no idea what to expect from this team should they make the playoffs or over the next 2 days. And I have no idea what to expect out of the Padres in regards to how they're going to construct their lineup or how they're going to who they're going to put out there as a starting pitcher. But this is it. This is it. We got 2 more games to see what the Diamondbacks can do. Right now, of course, let's take a look at the updated wildcard graphic and see where they're at, because you're not going to like this one. You're really not going to like this one. That's the Arizona Diamondbacks on the outside looking in. And that's a very appropriate picture of Torey. Absolutely. Couldn't be more appropriate. But Padres sit where they sit. They have clinched that top spot. All the other teams are pretty much not moving. I mean, the Brewers, I don't think that they hold the wild or the tiebreaker over the Phillies. So even if they tie at 94 and 68 there, I don't know if the Brewers can swap spots with the Phillies. But if they can, then that's a very, very good thing that the Brewers have something to play for there against the Mets. And then the Mets right now, they did not look very good today. The Braves, meanwhile, looked pretty damn good against the Royals. So yeah, this is where we sit right now.
And now the Royals don't have anything to play for because they clinched their wild card spot, which is not the best for us either, because you would obviously hypothetically like the Royals to be fighting for their season against the Braves right now. And that is unfortunately no longer the case. I don't know if they're locked. They could potentially get the second wild card spot. I don't know how much they care about it. They're a game back of the Tigers, but hopefully they still play these final games out and try in them and don't just rest Bobby Witt for the rest of the season. But I guess we'll see. It sucks to go from the Diamondbacks controlling their own destiny to now us talking about all these different scenarios. We hope that teams rest their best players.
You weren't here the other day.
Just help us, but don't in circumstances that don't benefit us.
How can we dangle the carrot for some of these games or for some of these teams? All of that stuff, right? I mean that you weren't here for that with Archie, but it's a nightmare. It's pretty much a nightmare, right? So
Sean says.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sean. He says it's a nightmare, Damon, and it is a nightmare because it did go really quickly. But that's the way the season has gone. I mean, I think we just constantly waited for teams like the Padres and the Mets and the Braves to stop winning, and they didn't. And the team that stopped winning was the Diamondbacks here in September. So, they're still not out of it, but it doesn't feel great to be in this position. You're absolutely right about that.
Absolutely not. And they have not played close to their best baseball. I want to preface that by saying that, but they also haven't been atrociously bad, I don't believe, in this month. Like it feels that way because of how high their playoff odds have been, but like it really just is the Braves and Mets just can't stop losing games, and the Padres, but we knew that. That's been a thing for a while. Like it kind of stinks because the Diamondbacks, like I think they're 5-5 in their last 10. It's not like the worst baseball that's ever been played. Typically, I think in a normal year, this kind of record would get you into the playoffs without almost a question in the world. It would have last year. So
yeah,
it's just been kind of a perfect storm. I keep going back to it of just bad events for this team that, I mean, it's just completely brutal, man. They're 12-11 in September. I don't know if that counts tonight. They might be 12-12, but it's not like they've just completely collapsed. These other teams are just insane right now.
Elise said it. Elise, who wanted them to win
That's
every
fair.
game down the stretch. She said one win in the last week of the season.
This week has been really bad.
Look, we didn't mean for the Diamondbacks to test Elise's theories so much that they would be like, oh, you think we need to win every game? What if we didn't win hardly any of them? What do you think about that now, Elise? And I don't like that, Elise, and I'm with you. I'm on your side about that. So, yeah, as much as I scoffed at you for your must win, maybe they should have at least felt like they did have to win every game. Maybe they would have won a couple of more. Of course, we will have Jesse Friedman joining us here shortly from Chase Field. And of course, we will get more from the clubhouse in regards to this loss. But first, I want to tell you guys about our friends, ZBiotics. ZBiotics, of course, is perfect for a night like this. This is another night where we might have to have a few drinks because I'll tell you this much, this ain't coffee in this mug, but tonight is a night you might have to get over. On nights like this, you should probably start your first drink of the night with ZBiotics, and it'll help you feel better tomorrow, even if this loss doesn't make you feel better. Pre-alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, and it was invented by smart PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into this toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct and not dehydration that makes us feel terrible the next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks down this byproduct. All you have to remember is to take ZBiotics the first drink of your night. Forget everything else I said there. I know that's all scientific stuff, but you just got to remember to take ZBiotics as your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best the next day, whether you're getting over this loss or the other embarrassing loss this week, or the 8-0 comeback loss that they allowed. It doesn't matter. You can stock up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/PHNXbacks to get 15% off your first order when you use PHNXbacks at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/PHNXbacks and use that code of PHNXbacks at checkout for 15% off.
You're a bad guy, Derek.
I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy.
And
I'll tell you. Well, I'm going to tell you about some really, really good people, and that's the people at Sanderson Ford, Damon. And the reason for that is because Sanderson Ford not only is a world-class auto dealership that you should go check out whenever you're looking to get a new vehicle, but they just wanted us this week to talk about Al McCoy. They wanted us to take our normal time where we tell you about their deals and their sales and just talk about how much we miss Al McCoy and how much he meant to the Valley. Damon, I know you've been kind of a lifelong Valley sports fan, and I mean, I'm much older than you are, and I know that Al McCoy is like the voice in my head of sports. I can only imagine like how younger people feel about Al McCoy.
Well, what's crazy is I make fun of, you know how I make fun of you for being old?
I do.
And then I make fun of my dad even more for being old. And he's obviously a lot older than you. You're kind of like my work dad. That's why I do that. But I make fun of my dad for being old. And he grew up in the Valley and was a Suns fan like when they were very early on. And Al McCoy was the voice of his childhood. Yeah. And the guy's ancient. Yeah. So that puts into perspective how old Al McCoy has been around, how long he's been around, how much of a voice he was in this, you know, industry and in this city. And man, it's sad, but it's also like a great time to just remember how awesome he was, the great things that he brought to this community, and just, and, you know, shout out Sanderson Ford for giving us the time to talk about him.
Absolutely. And how lucky we were to have him in our lives for as long as we did. 50 years
Absolutely,
was amazing. And so we will miss you, Al McCoy. We thank you so much for everything you brought to the Valley. And of course, Shazam, go Suns. Their season's starting up soon. We got to support each other. We need the support. Archie's going to yell at you if you don't come out and support this team. And I have another man here that's going to yell at you for not coming out and supporting this team. It's one and only Jesse Friedman. So. No, he's not. He's not going to yell at you for anything. He's going to be very nice to you, in fact. But Jesse, tonight's loss stung. I was talking to Damon a little bit about the parts that bothered me personally most. And I think that is that the team really did play so well outside of that first inning that it's just so frustrating that they played so badly for that frame.
It was brutal. I mean, it's hard I guess the first inning could have gone worse than it did.
Could have,
but not much worse. It's one thing to give up 4 runs, right? Like right. Starting pitchers get knocked around every now and then. That happens, but that just wasn't the actual story of that first inning. I don't think Merrill Kelly pitched great. I mean, he had Jerks and Profar in an 0-2 count. He hit him with a pitch. He walked Jay Cronenworth after some of the other disastrous things that happened in that inning. He gave up an RBI single to David Peralta on a fastball that was right down the middle. So I'm not saying it was a well-pitched inning by Merrill Kelly, but at the same time, Merrill Kelly probably shouldn't have given up a run in that inning, because if Ketel Marte is able to turn a double play there on Manny Machado, which I'm sure you guys have discussed, that's a 0, right? And even if Ketel isn't able to turn that play, if he's able to turn another potential inning-ending double play that happened 3 pitches later.
Yeah, Xander Bogaerts play, right?
Yeah, the Xander Bogaerts play. Then it's a 2-run inning, and the Diamondbacks wound up losing this game by 2 runs. So, yeah, I mean, it's baseball is a sport where you can ask a lot of what-if questions after games, and sometimes those questions are only about, what if this ball had dropped in, or, you get a little bit better batted ball luck, or you catch a break here or there. But the story for me, even though I think there was some of that, the D-backs did have some hard hit balls in this game that did not actually result in base hits. But you can't really make a case that the D-backs deserve to win this game when they made 2 really, really poor defensive plays in the first inning. And I guess what's most troubling there is that this was the Diamondbacks' best player. This was a guy who's in the Gold Glove conversation at second base. And when with the lights shining brightest, the most important game of the year, he looked not necessarily flattered, but it just was not. We're used to Ketel really rising to the occasion in these moments, and he obviously did not do that there.
Well, what do we have from the clubhouse, Jesse? Because I'm sure people weren't happy with this loss. I did silver line it a little bit, thanks to some of our Padres friends in the chat. They were all talking about how we're good now. They're going to rest their players for the next 2 games, and now we're going to have
so that they get the pleasure of facing us.
So that they get the pleasure of facing us. They want us again in the playoffs, is what they're saying. Which, with the way the Diamondbacks have been playing lately, I don't fault them for wanting that, right? But there's a strong possibility here that the Padres might not put up a huge fight these next 2 games, and the Diamondbacks could just see a little bit easier of a starting lineup and maybe potentially starting pitcher from the Padres side of things.
I mean, it's not real likely that the Diamondbacks play the Padres in that wild card series at this point, because those teams are in a 3-way tie, right? The D-backs are in a 3-way tie now with Atlanta and New York, and that means that both the Braves and the Mets have the upper hand on the D-backs as of today. The only way the D-backs play the Padres is if they find a way to finish in front of both of those teams, which is not impossible, but there's the current situation right now. Technically the D-backs are they're in a virtual tie. They played a couple more games, but they're in a virtual tie with the Braves and the Mets, and yet the Braves and the Mets are both in definitely better position than they are. So but this was the day that the Diamondbacks lost control of their destiny. Right. It's not that they can't make the postseason. I mean, we were talking yesterday about a whole bunch of scenarios where they do make the postseason by winning 2 out of 3 games this weekend. That is still very possible. And as you guys were just saying, the Padres now have nothing to play for. This was the perfect scenario that the Padres needed in order to have nothing to play for. And obviously part of that scenario is the D-backs losing today, which is not a good thing. But maybe with San Diego kind of taking their foot off the gas the next couple of days, that could help the Diamondbacks for sure.
Damon's doubtful of that. He does not see that happening with the San Diego Padres.
It's not
at
even
least,
that. It's just,
no,
I
was going to say, at least maybe we get some relief pitchers they wouldn't normally use or something of that sort. Like, I don't believe that the Padres want to lose this series to the Diamondbacks. I don't believe the Padres want to roll over and just let the Diamondbacks into the playoffs by winning the next 2 games. I am sure, just like we talked about with the Mets and the Braves, I am sure the Padres would love to be the ones that ended the Diamondback season and put the nail in the coffin. So there's still that, but there's intelligent managing, and part of that intelligent managing would be to give some of your best guys the rest so that they're ready to go when this upcoming wildcard round starts.
I mean, it does help the Diamondbacks, right? Like, I'm sure that the Padres are like, there's no way you're seeing Michael King on Sunday. That's not happening. That's a big win for the D-backs. I haven't seen, I imagine they've announced a starter. I imagine it's Martin Perez for tomorrow. I haven't seen that come out officially, but yeah, it's helpful. At the same time, the Diamondbacks lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies last week. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants earlier this week. This isn't a team right now that is easy to bet on, frankly, even if the other team is not playing for anything. And I guess maybe I'm losing perspective a little bit on the fact that the Diamondbacks still have won 88 games. I mean, they still are one of the better teams in baseball for sure. But this week has been brutal. Ever since they blew that 8-run lead to the Milwaukee Brewers on Sunday, this team has looked very different. The only game that they've managed to win was a game where they had their best starting pitcher going against Mason Black of the San Francisco Giants. I mean, the gap there was absolutely massive in terms of just the starting pitching matchup. Outside of that, the D-backs have looked flat in a lot of these games.
It's traumatic to lose an 8-run lead, Jesse. Sometimes you just can't shake it. You just close your eyes and you just see those Brewers runs coming up on the board, and that's all you see. All right, well, what do you got from the clubhouse?
Yeah, we'll start with just Torey's opening statement here. This one's a little bit longer, but I think there's a lot of different layers to why the Diamondbacks lost this game, and actually some things that I think they did fairly well that maybe they weren't rewarded for along the way. Here's what Torey had to say.
We had a lot of fight in us today. We couldn't close up that early deficit. You know, the first inning, I think, took a little bit of energy out of us. We got some footing in the bottom of the inning, made it 4-2. But you know, we'll take a close look at that first inning and try to get better and learn from it. You know, I thought Merrill deserved a little bit better fade. He threw the ball okay. A couple tough plays that weren't made resulted in his line score looking worse than it did. He pitched into the 6th inning. I was thinking about giving him that 4th time through the lineup, but with the man at second base, I decided against it. And you know, he did his job. He kept us in the game despite a rugged first inning. No cramping, no issues. The conditions at the field were fine. Just, you know, there was a lot of people here, which we're grateful for. There was a ton of energy from the fans, which tends to heat up the building, but it was fine. So Merrill was pulled from the game because of his pitch count and the game situation. Offensively, we just kept grinding. We kept getting out that opportunity. We were one hit away a couple times from really closing up and making it a good game, or making it more of a game. I felt like if we did, there would have been a tremendous energy in our dugout and we would have won this game, but we just couldn't do it. So that's the problem with baseball. Sometimes it doesn't work. We got to be ready to go tomorrow. We know what we're fighting for. You know, a lot of people are asking me certain questions about the stability of our team. Are we okay? We're great. We're fine when it comes to prepping and expecting to go out and have good things happen. So, we can't explain it sometimes. Baseball's a crazy game. We know what's there. We didn't get the victory today, but we sure as hell are going to do all we can to get one tomorrow.
I know he's in a rough position there, but I don't know. I don't know. He seems way too positive for my liking. I know you have to stay positive, but like I would like yes, Ryan is right. Now that is coping. I don't think we were coping earlier, but maybe I was coping with the fact that I was coping. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's not that it's like, I guess it's the right attitude considering you still have to go out there and try to win these next 2 games. And these next 2 games are big for this team to win. But I don't know.
I would love to hear our backs are against the wall now, and we know that, and we're aware of the moment, and we got to go out there and play the best baseball that this team's capable of playing. Like, I don't think that would be a bad way of approaching that, but I also think it's understandable that Torey, maybe he did say that behind closed doors, but to the media, he's saying a different thing because, that's people have a tendency to do that from time to time in sports. It's not the best answer. Like, I think who put it in there? I think it was who. I think he was like, what is he even talking about? I kind of was sitting there thinking the same thing. Like, what are we spending we're just saying the same thing over and over again in circles. This team is good. We're fine. We're okay. We're not feeling the pressure, but then just over and over again, like almost trying to convince yourself of it.
Well, again, Jesse and I had talked about this possibility prior to today, right? So there probably is some thought internally, Jesse, that, we knew that once the Padres would be fighting hard to win 1 game to try to make sure the Diamondbacks don't leapfrog them. But now that that's done, you kind of feel oddly confident about your chances the next 2 days going out there. He does, at least. We don't, but he does.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have another Torey clip that I'm curious what your this is very quick. I'm curious your guys' reaction to this one. This is Torey. He was asked at the end of his press interview about how the Diamondbacks no longer control their destiny. This is really quick, but here's what he had to say about that.
I don't feel great, but it makes me hungry. It makes me want to come here tomorrow and be my absolute best for this team. And I know the team feels the same way as well.
I like that. I like that a little, Damon. That's better. Yeah. All right. We're feeling better about that.
That's a better answer.
Yeah. All right. I needed something yes. And again, Steven's right. He says, I want to see fire from Torey. Right. And Torey gives the fire. We just aren't present to witness it. Right. Torey knows what to say to the media, and he knows the attitude to have, that kind of even keel personality. But I guarantee you that he might not have read them the riot act, but Torey went in there and yelled a lot of 4-letter words that I can't say on the show anymore.
Yeah, I mean, so Torey did go out in the first inning. You guys might have noticed this on the broadcast. After some of the chaos, there was that fly ball to right center field that was not caught. Pavin Smith got fairly close, but it sure felt like it hung in the air for an awfully long time. And Torey had seen the Ketel plays, that play, and wanted to kind of settle the situation. And he went out and basically told the guys to lock it in. And he looked everyone in the eye and wanted to see how they would react to that. And he got the responses that he was looking for, and he went back to the dugout. And honestly, from that point forward, I thought the Diamondbacks played a pretty good baseball game. That this wasn't as disastrous as that first inning was. I don't view this game as being, boy, the Diamondbacks did not show up in any facet and just got slaughtered. Like, they had good at bats. They made a lot of hard contact, but obviously it wasn't enough for the win.
All right. Well, we will have more from Jesse and the clubhouse here shortly, but we do have some more from our friends, of course, and some of our partners. So stick around and we will get to that stuff from the clubhouse. But first, got to check out Branded Bills. Damon's rocking one right now. You got some in the background there. They're light. They are comfortable. They're stretchy. They're amazing. Right now, Branded Bills has collegiate teams, so they have partnerships with ASU and U of A as part of their campus collection. And they can also make hats for you and your company if you're looking to have some stylish caps made. I know we got some PHNX ones coming soon, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But they're a local company from right here in Mesa, Arizona, and they make a quality product and custom apparel for any needs that you might have. They also have some amazing Halloween hats right now, and I've talked about it in the past, but you got to check out all of their wonderful hats for this great state of Arizona that we live in. So head to brandedbills.com and use that code of PHNX for 20% off your first order, and go do it now. Also, speaking of going and doing it now, go stop by Circle K right now. I know, look, we're thirsty, we're hot, we're a little bothered after this game, and Circle K is the place to cool us down with their wonderful drinks. They also have that beer cave that Damon is so fond of, and of course, you got to check out the Inner Circle. If you haven't done so already, it's absolutely free. Do not hesitate. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. But when you do, you'll get 5 Polar Pops for absolutely free. And then you'll also save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. So do not miss out on cooling off at Circle K on a hot day like this. It is America's thirst stop. All right, Jesse. Well, what else do you have for us from the clubhouse? Because I know we got some sad Ketel video.
We do have some sad Ketel video. Ketel was asked about the Diamondbacks' current position after losing this game, his thoughts on that, as well as the throwing error that he made. Obviously, there were a couple of misplays in that first inning, but he talks about that as well here in this clip.
Nada, ya el juego de hoy pasó. Hubieron un pequeñito problema ahí, en caso mi error y unos cuantos problemitas ahí que causaron daño en el juego, pero tú sabes, esto no se ha acabado, quedan 2 todavía, hay que venir mañana y dar lo mejor de nosotros.
Today's game, it's past. There's a few mistakes, few errors that happened today, including my error today, but this isn't done yet. There's 2 more to go.
Did he just not have a good grip on the ball on that double play?
En la jugada de doble play no tenías buen mantenimiento de la pelota.
Podemos decir, pero eso no es excusa. Yo pienso que soy el mejor ahí en segunda, ¿sabes? Eso son cosas que pasan en el juego. De verdad que causé ahí que bajara una carrera. Eso pudo haber hecho daño en el juego, pero soy el mejor ahí como quiera.
You could say that, but that's making an excuse. I think I'm the best at that position right there, so it caused us to lose a run, but I think I'm the best at that position.
Mentioned how tough that first play was from.
It's a bold statement, but I understand where he's coming from. He's got to stay confident, and he's also not really trying to make any excuses for his poor play there in that first inning. Like it's unfortunate it happened because, yeah, like Ryan says, when our Lord and Savior Ketel is down, that's when yeah, he's down bad there. And I mean, he I'm sure he feels awful. I'm sure he's trying not to let it mentally break him too much with the fact that there are 2 more games that this team very much needs him for going forward. And I mean, it's baseball, right? Like you're going to have nights where you don't make the best plays. And I'm sure this isn't the first time Ketel has done that and had to shake it off and come out the next day. It's just the time we need our guys to be the best, and we need our best player to be at his best. Corbin Carroll arguably is still giving like 100% effort, even on a night where he went 1 for 3. I don't feel like you ever questioned Carroll's, I guess, like giving his best effort right now. I'm not saying Ketel didn't give his best effort, but it really felt like once he had that first double play kind of go wrong for him, he couldn't get his mind back into it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly if there was something mental going on there. I will say that comment Ketel made about being the best at second base, he said that, I believe, 2 more times throughout the rest of the interview talking about those plays. So confidence does not seem
not
to
a problem at confidence
there.
At all. Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing to have a first inning that you had tonight and still be like, I'm the best in that position. Hats off to you. Hats off.
I mean, I think that's natural, with when you make an error in that inning. Like we saw it a few games ago, like it wasn't that long ago with Perdomo, and I think Perdomo seems to be a kind of guy who's somewhat of a mentality monster. Like that doesn't seem like that he gets in his own head about things often, lots of 0-2 counts, working the count. Like that's kind of the type of player he is. But he made a couple errors in one inning a couple games ago that really cost this team as well. Like I think that's a natural human thing that can happen. It's unfortunate, the timing of it, especially when it's the guy who's been carrying this team on his back the entire season, because the Diamondbacks wouldn't be nearly as good without Ketel Marte, but like it's potential that, his poor performance tonight could be the reason that this team misses the playoffs. It's very possible.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been a good week for Ketel in general, right? I think he came into today 2 for 10 with a double, something like that. Obviously he sat out on Monday, which was his decision, not Torey Lovullo's decision from what we discovered after the fact. So yeah, I mean, you need your best players to perform in the biggest moments, right? And Ketel's not the only one who hasn't been living up to that standard lately, right? I think Jock Peterson has really kind of slowed down here and really the last month or so, where he just hasn't looked the same. You're seeing him chase pitches out of the zone more often. You're seeing him have shorter at bats than we're used to him seeing. And Christian Walker hasn't looked great either since coming back from the injured list. I know he had the one game against the Rangers where he hit a couple of home runs, but outside of that, he hasn't done a ton of damage either. So yeah, a lot of those key bats that have really carried the Diamondbacks this season, it hasn't been the same here over these last few days.
Well, what else you got from the clubhouse there, Jesse?
Yeah, we also have Merrill Kelly, who pretty clearly did not think that he pitched horribly today, nor do I. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious, honestly, watching this game, that I think Merrill Kelly pitched pretty well, despite what the final line score would say. Those defensive mistakes in the first inning were huge. But here's Merrill talking about those defensive mistakes and just kind of what it's like as a pitcher having stuff like that happen behind you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a pitcher, you feel like you won that at bat. You make the pitch and you get the desired out, or you get the desired outcome of that pitch. And then, like I said, we just couldn't capitalize it. But like I said, it's part of the game. At that point, we still had plenty of chance to win the game. And like I said, my job is to pick them up. Obviously, everybody's trying their hardest. Mistakes happen, physical mistakes happen. It's my job to try not to have those mistakes spiral and get worse than what they could be. And I feel like I did a decent job of that tonight, but probably if I look back on it, probably not as good as maybe I could have.
I think at one point earlier in the show, I might have said like Merrill didn't have his like a strong outing or whatever. Like I in retrospect, I don't know if that's the case. I might have misspoke when I said that. And honestly, it goes back to me saying I'm really impressed with the way that this team did fight back to stay in this game, despite how much that first inning kind of spiraled out of control. But looking back on the results of the plays and how everything went, like this is a night normally where a couple of guys got hits and then a double play gets them out of the inning and we're done. No runs score. We're not even talking about the first inning. So realistically, like, yeah, Merrill really wasn't at fault for how that first inning went.
Yeah, and I think also the couple of balls that Luis Ariz hit in the right center field gap, obviously those were not errors. Those were not mistakes necessarily, but I did get a catch probability on Ariz's gapper in the first inning. It was 35%.
35%.
So not an easy play, right? But if Jake McCarthy is out in right field, is he able to get to, or I guess what would have probably happened is Jake is in center and Corbin is right, is what the D-backs would have done. Is Corbin able to run that down? His routes have looked pretty good lately. It wouldn't shock me if he was able to. There's a pretty big difference between Pavin's speed and Corbin's speed out in right field.
And I brought this up earlier, Jesse, but just to ride on the back of that once again, in his last 9 games against the Padres, Jake is hitting 400 with 2 doubles, 1 home run, 5 RBI, 5 walks, and 1 stolen base. Now, it might be situational. It might have had a lot to do with Darvish, but I don't know. I just don't know if it's really worth sacrificing. I don't know if Pavin's offense is consistent enough to worth sacrificing having Jake McCarthy out there in the outfield and having that outfield of, really good defenders instead of having Pavin out there who didn't really play the best defense out there.
Or offense.
I mean, Pavin did hit a very deep fly ball to center field at one point in this game that was caught. So I don't think it was terrible for him offensively. But another question that Torey was asked after this game is a fly ball like that in right center field that drops in, is that kind of part of the give and take of starting Pavin Smith over a Jake McCarthy on a game like this? And Torey was pretty open and said, yeah, I mean, that's kind of part of the game. Like the Diamondbacks made a decision to have Pavin Smith's bat in the lineup over Jake McCarthy's bat. And I think we can understand why. Pavin, I believe, came in with good numbers against Darvish in particular, and he's certainly been swinging a better bat lately than Jake McCarthy has. I wonder how Alek Thomas might fit into this picture the next couple of days, because Jake McCarthy is not the best defensive center fielder on this team. Alek Thomas is, after he was called up today. Are you starting Alek Thomas against what I think will be a lefty tomorrow? I have a hard time seeing the D-backs do that, but we did see them start Thomas a lot in the playoffs last year, even though he wasn't doing a ton offensively, because he's the best defensive center fielder you have. And it feels like in the biggest moments, in the games that you really, really have to have, it feels like having good defense at premium positions is maybe all the more important in these moments. So I'm curious how the D-backs approach that the next couple of days.
A lot of these games finish on the margins. And when you have Jackson Merrill out there running down deep fly balls that the Diamondbacks are hitting really hard off the bat versus plays that probably a lot of good defensive outfielders would make, conversely turning into doubles and runs for the opposing team, like that changes everything. So I mean, that's what baseball is. It's, everyone says game of inches about, a lot of sports, but baseball's one of them. And I think that's the unfortunate nature of where this team's at right now. They're not playing good defense. They haven't been I don't think they've been a particularly great defensive team all season compared to maybe last season.
Yeah.
And it's showing in big moments here.
That's very fair.
I did also get a catch probability on, it was the 4th inning when Luis Ariz was at it again, and hit another one into the right center field gap. Corbin Carroll apparently was the closer one there. So the catch probability applies to him, and it was 30%. So another ball that you're not necessarily expecting to get. But again, if the D-backs go with, say, Alek Thomas in center and Corbin in right, it's not all that hard to imagine both of those balls getting caught. And then if Ketel, is able to turn that double play in the first inning, I know you can go crazy with hindsight is 2020 at times in baseball, but the Diamondbacks, if they're able to get that gapper from Ariz in the 4th inning, which I think was probably a catchable ball if Alek Thomas is out there, and they're able to, if Ketel's able to convert that double play in the first, the Padres didn't score any other runs in this game. I thought this was actually a pretty well-pitched game by the Diamondbacks overall. But yeah, you have to be able to make those big plays, and the Diamondbacks fell short on that front today.
Jesse Ryan wants you to know what Damon brought up earlier, which is that the Diamondbacks have a 38.6% chance of making the postseason, according to FanGraphs currently.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. They don't have the tiebreaker with either of these teams, and you don't necessarily think about that if, first weekend of the season, or not maybe first weekend, but one of the first series the D-backs played this year was on the road against the Atlanta Braves. And in that series, they lost a game where they were.
Oh no, don't remind me of this, Jesse.
They were up. Were they up in every single game of that series? I think. Braves come back.
I don't think they were up in the last game. The last game was close, and I think Blaze Alexander had some sort of a miscue where maybe the D-backs could have flipped that in their direction. But the first game of that series was a day where the D-backs put up 8 runs on Max Fried and had an 8-2 lead and wound up losing that game. And then there was another game that weekend where I think it.
You want me to get you out of the show again, and then you want people to be mad. Like, I feel like you beg for me to banish you from the show. We haven't even done the numbers that doesn't lie yet. I want to banish you from the show. Why are we talking about that? There are so many games, Jesse, that we could bring up in regards to this. But you're right. I mean, like that.
But against the Braves, the reason I'm saying this is because against the Braves in particular, the D-backs had a game where they were up 8-2 and lost, and then they had another game where I think they were up 5-2 going to the 8th inning, and they made a couple of really ugly defensive misplays in I think it was maybe the 8th and the 9th, or maybe both happened in the 9th. I think they involved Blaze Alexander, and the D-backs let that game slip away as well. And then there was also a really brutal game at home against the Braves where Sean Murphy hit, I believe, a go-ahead home run against Paul Sewald. So, we can of course do this all day. I understand that, but with the Braves in particular,
tiebreaker,
with the Braves in particular, the D-backs had some games that they really looked like they were going to win. And I think that last one against Atlanta, where Sean Murphy hit the home run, I think the Braves were down to their last out with nobody on base, and they came back and wound up winning that game. So that's just, you're not thinking about that necessarily in the moment, but right now with the D-backs knotted up with both Atlanta and New York, it's hard not to have those things come to mind.
Jesse says not thinking about it in the moment, but I would almost guarantee if we go back and watch our post-game show, Jesse might have like one-off mentioned like, you never know, Derek, this could really hurt you down the stretch in a tiebreaker scenario with the Braves to make the playoffs. Like that
There's
would
no
not
way he would
shock
have
me
said that during the
whatsoever.
first season. He would have definitely said that during the last series, but there would have been too much baseball left for Jesse to be getting too doomsday about.
Yeah, I don't
in the
think
first
I was
month of
talking
the
about.
season.
I don't think I was talking about tiebreakers when the D-backs were like 4-6 or something.
He would scoff at you for even doing such a thing, Damon. That's what Jesse would do. He would say you're crazy for even bringing this up. But like, look at how important it was. Look at how, I mean, I think we can all remember fairly significant losses that you feel like changed the season for this team, and especially those against the Braves, especially, you know, the one game against the Brewers. There's going to be a lot that we pick apart should the Diamondbacks not make the postseason. But Benjamin Hunley, I did see your super chat that they threw up on screen. He said, remember when the D-backs absolutely lit up Strider and Fried early in the season? Yes, we do. As we were discussing there, Kang.
The Strider one is kind of sad because that was the precursor to him having Tommy John surgery. So that was not peak Spencer Strider. That's
not our fault. We didn't do it to him, Jesse. Kang, thank you for your super chat. I'm sorry that you got banished from all of the Marvel movies. Kang says win out, forces both ATL and New York Mets to go 3-1. Go Snakes. I love the positivity, and that's all we can do at this point, right? Like, we can't do much to control our destiny as a team, but the Diamondbacks can just win, and that gives them, they can win these next 2 games. It gives them a fairly decent chance of still making the postseason, which seems crazy to say. It seems insane.
I do remember first weekend Jesse mentioning the whole hurricane scenario down the stretch.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember that. I remember Jesse was like,
bring that up and talk about
we better do something about these neutral site situations in case of weather, or it might come back to bite the Diamondbacks. Well,
hey,
that's
you guys know that I'm big on, I love weather. I'm like always randomly looking at weather reports, and yeah, I did have like a 5-month heads up about Hurricane Helene. So I don't know what all these other so-called meteorologists
You're so worried about your reputation, but then you're just going to come on this show and be a fraud like this. It's amazing to me. Well, Jesse is a liar. Damon's also a liar. Who else? Steven in the chat, he's a liar, but we know the numbers, they don't lie. So Jesse, what do you have for tonight's number that doesn't lie?
Yeah, tonight's number, this is a really big number. This might be the biggest number that doesn't lie that we've ever had. It is 1,209.
Ooh, can I guess?
Control. Whoa.
Yeah. What do you got, Damon? What do you think?
Does it have something to do with adding up the foot distance of balls that were hit by the Diamondbacks tonight?
It does. You nailed it, Damon. Well done.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is so the Diamondbacks had the 4 farthest batted balls in this game.
Yeah.
The farthest batted ball was Corbin Carroll's first inning homer. That was the D-backs did not get Chase Field did not do them in there. That was a home run and a very big one for the D-backs to get right on the scoreboard after a brutal top half of the first inning. But I mentioned the 4 farthest hit balls in this game are all by the D-backs. You look at the other 3, there was a Randall Grichuk double that would have been a home run in 22 out of 30 ballparks. And then there were a couple of flyouts. There was Ketel Marte's flyout to straightaway center field. Jackson Merrill made a really nice play there.
Which was the play before the Grichuk hit. So, I mean, hypothetically, if he gets on base, that's a 2-run homer that ties the game.
Yeah, exactly. So that was brutal. I mean, Ketel he did everything you really could have hoped for in that spot. He worked a 3-1 count and hit an absolute missile. Jackson Merrill, to his credit, is a very good center fielder. But if you're hitting in Chase Field, hitting the ball to straightaway center field is not the choice you want to make. And granted, hitters do not necessarily control. They don't have a ton of control over that necessarily. But yeah, so there was that Ketel flyout. And then there was also the Pavin Smith flyout that we discussed earlier as well, which was 105 miles an hour off the bat and was totally smoked to center field. So out of those 4 batted balls, the Diamondbacks just wound up scoring the 1 run. And of course, that being Corbin's homer. So that was tough. I mean, the D-backs, again, I think offensively, they had a pretty decent approach most of the night. There were some quick at bats in the middle innings there against Yu Darvish, but by and large, they made a lot of hard contact, and they had opportunity after opportunity. It felt like they brought at least the tying run or the tying run to the plate in just about every inning down the stretch there, and they just weren't able to get that big hit.
Always with 2 outs, though, didn't it feel like?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, we can kind of go through some of them. In the 5th inning, they got a couple of walks from Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte. That is where Jock hit I believe a pretty hard hit ball. It wasn't 400 feet, but that was a bit of a tough break there. And then, in the 6th inning, the Diamondbacks capitalized on some unusually poor defense from Manny Machado at third base. Gabby Moreno hit one kind of right at him, wound up at second. You had second and third in that spot with Geraldo Perdomo coming up. We've seen Perdomo come through in a lot of those kinds of situations. He had a chance to tie the game if he could have just hit a bloop single somewhere. He winds up grounding out. And then, the Diamondbacks had a double in the 7th inning. That was the Grichuk hit. Could have maybe had more if Ketel's deep fly out was not caught. That was kind of an ongoing theme of the night was having those opportunities, but D-backs went 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position, and that big hit just eluded them all night.
I hear it now. That I hear the coping now, Damon. I can hear the coping when we do that. Steven Banas has a great point, and it's something I wanted to bring up before we left tonight. Steve says, let's all cheer for Seawalk. Might be his last games. And I was going to encourage, you guys know me, I'm not a big give a guy a standing ovation kind of guy just for the purpose of making them feel good about themselves. And maybe it'll help them in their at bats. Right. But I think Christian Walker has been an absolute legend in his time here. And he played in the shadow of a very big hero that a lot of Diamondbacks fans were very upset left the Valley. Right. In Paul Goldschmidt. And I think that he did an amazing job in his time here. And should this be the end of his time with the Diamondbacks, I do think that Seawalk definitely deserves to go out with a standing ovation from the home crowd in the final, game. And we probably won't really even know if that's the final game of the season or not for the Diamondbacks when it takes place on Sunday. So I would just say, if you're there, stand up for that man and give him a round of applause, because he deserves it. And he's been an incredible teammate, incredible player for this team, and just an incredible person.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say about Christian Walker and what he's been able to do as a member of the Diamondbacks? There's a reason that I think the D-backs have a shot to retain him totally, but I feel like almost any time I'm hearing a national baseball analyst talk about what such and such team that didn't make the playoffs should do over the offseason, Christian Walker is always mentioned. The Pirates, of course, they should go sign Christian Walker. The Washington Nationals, they need more. They should go sign Christian Walker. He's just the kind of guy that everyone wants to have on their team. He's a really hard worker. He does the fundamentals as well as anyone. He's the best defensive first baseman in all of baseball, has for a good while now. So it's remarkable what he's been able to give the Diamondbacks. And, hopefully this isn't the end, right? I think there is a chance that the D-backs bring him back, and, maybe he winds up retiring as a member of the Diamondbacks someday. Ooh. But he is going to be a highly sought after commodity this winter for sure.
I love Seawalk. I really hope that they bring him back. But I'm going to be the guy, and I'm going to say, if this is going to be the end, can we please get some big hits out of you in these last couple of games? Because there's a narrative that is formed that Christian Walker in the biggest moments doesn't always live up to the expectations. Sure. And it would be awesome if he could find a way to do that when this team needs him the most, and potentially his final two games as a Diamondback. So I think he absolutely deserves a standing ovation, but please, Christian, I'm begging you to get some big hits this weekend, because we need them.
We just need to go over this one thing, and that is that the lyrics are Walker, 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 single, double, triple Walker. He hits dingers. Christian Walker having a day. And we need him. We need him to have a day on Saturday, and we need him to have
Chase
a day
Field.
on Sunday. At Chase Field. At Chase Field. There you go. That was for you, Damon. Well, of course, we thank you guys for joining us tonight. You guys are a wonderful group of people, and we hope that the Diamondbacks can make you much happier than you currently might be with these final 2 games of the regular season. We don't know what we're going to do this weekend. It's still up in the air, but we promise we will bring you a breaking podcast, an emergency podcast, should anything crazy happen, especially if the Diamondbacks find a way to clinch a playoff spot on Sunday. We will be here after the game. Otherwise, we'll be back on Monday with a whole lot to unpack and maybe even a watch party for those Mets, or not watch party, but watch along. We'll do it. It's just me and Jesse and Damon. Sorry, none of you are invited, but you are invited to watch us, watch it with us at the watch along. So make sure to just stay tuned for all of that. The best way to do so, sign up for notifications here for the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Of course, you can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Cap_Caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Damon is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. And the two of us, we are Damon's dogs. Bark, bark.
Bark, bark.
You can follow our guy Kevin at Kev Tom Writes. That's THOM Writes, WRITES. But our show, of course, is at PHNX_D-backs, and all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you guys again for your time. We hope you have a good night, and we hope you have a great weekend, and we hope the Diamondbacks have a great weekend. And until we see you again, behave yourselves, and remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it would be so much more fun if that playoff percentage wasn't at 38% or whatever it's at.
We all silly like the mayor.